Well, welcome to the first Hay House World Summit. You and I talk almost every day, so This is going to be interesting having the cameras here.
Right.
I guess we won't be talking about the heat today.
Yeah, we're going to talk basketball and everything else. Right.
But one of the things, right now I'm reading your new book. I can see clearly now that, the manuscript that's not coming out until March of 2014, but I'm having a fun time living your life through your words, which it's an amazing new book. And one of the things that I noticed when I'm reading that book is kind of how your life is different than anyone. Like everything you've done is the wrong thing. Like you grew up in an orphanage. You struggled. Like I think you were smart in high school, but you didn't get great grades. You didn't you didn't get to college. Even when you tried to get to college, it wasn't easy to get in. And so it seems like everything went wrong, and yet you turned out to be Wayne Dyer. And I was just wondering, like now looking back on it, like a perspective you have, and also like maybe some practical advice people can have of how to apply the things, look at the world the way you did, because people are struggling now and they're saying everything's going wrong, but it never stopped you.
Right. That was a fascinating experience. It was on June the 26th of last year. I had said to my family and everything, I'm done writing now for a while. I've got a couple of years. I've just published a new book, Wishes Fulfilled. Did public television, 10th public television special, and I said, and I just feel so great. I can now relax and so on. And on June the 27th, the next day, I sat down and started writing. And I wrote every single day for the next 3 months. My family all came. I have a place on Maui where I do my writing, and they all came. I have 2 places there, and they filled that up. And the writing, it was so intense in me to do this writing that I rented a place. I spent thousands of dollars to have a place where I could go for 4 or 5 hours every single day, because there was such a calling inside of me that that wouldn't let me stop. And this is the day after I had decided I'm going to take a break now from writing. And the interesting thing is, I finished that book in 90 days, and that book isn't even out yet. Right. And I'm already in the process of writing another one. Every time I swim or whatever, there's an idea comes in, I'm taking notes on it and so on. And I guess the answer to what you were speaking about is that there's just an awareness that there's something moving the checkers around. Right. You know how you ever play checkers? You watch, you think you're moving the checkers. Well, your whole life is like a checkerboard, you know, and there's all of this. You were born here, and this happened when you were in high school, and this happened in here. And there's a sense that you get, especially looking back on it, that you begin to realize that there's something else moving all of these pieces around in your life. And that was really true for me right from the very beginning.
And did you recognize it in the beginning, or looking back you recognize it more?
I think it's more of like I give the example of when I went to look for my father, who walked away, just abandoned us, and that's why I spent 10 years in an orphanage and so on. And there was all kinds of very bizarre spiritual kinds of things that happened to get me to his grave, because there was something I needed to do in my soul, which was to forgive this man, because I was filled with rage and anger and hatred and bitterness, and I was out of control. I was drinking, I was sad, I was always wondering how could anyone just walk away from his whole family and so on. And and I was guided to go down to his grave in Biloxi, Mississippi. And while it was happening, as you ask, while it was happening, I was given this little business card, and it had the place where he was buried, and I didn't even know where he was buried. And the second that happened, when I was told he's buried on the lot of the Candlelight Inn in Biloxi, Mississippi, and I had a card in my pocket that said Candlelight Inn, Biloxi, Mississippi, from a car that I had rented that day. Now, you asked the question, are you aware of it at the time? At the moment, at the time, you know what my thought was? That's a coincidence. That's kind of interesting. You know, it's like it says Biloxi, and I'm going to Biloxi, and so on. And I didn't think it, and it's the Candlelight Inn, and I put it down. But then when you look back on it, And when you begin to look back on it, and that's what has been good for me now. And what I would suggest and offer to people is the awareness that no matter what it is that is taking place in your life, to be able to look back on it. Like one of the opening stories, and I can see clearly now, is when I was in the 4th grade. I was 10 years old, and it was the first time that I'd ever lived with my mother since I was an infant. Right. And the first time I'd literally met my oldest brother, Jim.
No, I never even thought of that, but he wasn't with you. You and your other brother were together.
Yeah, my brother David and I were together through all of the different homes and different places that we went, orphanages, foster homes, and so on. But my oldest brother stayed with my grandmother while my mother was working. And I didn't. So I was 10 years old, and we were just all brought together. My mother had remarried. She married a man very similar to my father, another alcoholic, abusive man. She stayed with him for about 5 years. And one of the earliest stories that I recall as I was writing it down, the significant events, I remember when we talked about whether I should write this book or not, what it is, and you were really encouraging me. I said, who's going to read my story? And it's really not a memoir. It's really a look at all of the significant things and the people and the events and the circumstances that all showed up at a particular time. And then you look back on it and you say, oh my God, that fits into this pattern. And there I am in the elementary school at Arthur Elementary School, and there was a teacher there. Her name was Mrs. Engel. And every day at 2:45, she would read to us from a book for about 20 minutes before this class was out at 3:05, I think, or 3:10. So we had about 20 minutes where she would read to us every day. But the only way that she would read to us is if the class was good during the day, which means quiet, so that doesn't make her day hard. So I loved that story that she was reading so much that I became the enforcer, her enforcer in the classroom, because people would listen to me. And if somebody talked, I'd go over and say, knock it off, we don't do that in here because I want to hear. And the book was The Secret Garden. The Secret Garden, a very famous book written back, I think, in 1909. It's the story of a girl who was an orphan, who was 10 years old. She had come to this place and they had a secret garden. And the secret garden is really, it's not so much a physical place, it's a place within. But when they went into this garden, and she had friends who were, unhappy and sad and all of that, and when you were in this garden, she could make them happy, and she could make them, make it come alive. And when I look back on that now, 10 years old, my life has been about having people learn that they have a secret garden within them, that every single person watching this right now has a place within them where they can make something happen that they want, and they can overcome. That's what that whole book was about. So that was just absolutely fascinating to me, to be able to do that. And I think that what I would offer people as a suggestion is that when these circumstances and things come up in your life, rather than saying, why is this happening to me, and getting upset, and I call it like there's 3 ways to enlightenment. One is called enlightenment through suffering. So something happens to you. You spend 10 years in an orphanage. You get thrown out of school. You go through a hard time in your life, or whatever it might be. You lose a job, whatever. And then you go through a long period of time, maybe 10, 12 years, and you look back on it and you say, oh, now I know why I was going through that. But a higher level than suffering is, because you don't get too many 10-year periods. You get 4 or 5 of those, your life's over, you're leaving. So you get to a place where when something is happening now, in this moment, no matter what it is, it's what they always say, is like to have a sense of gratitude, not just for all of the nice things and the good people and the people that smell good who show up in your life, but to be in a state of gratitude for everything that is going on in your life. Like right now in my life, I got an issue and a struggle with something in my back, and I'm having this difficult. But rather than every day saying, oh, why is this happening? This shouldn't be happening to me, and it's not fair, and how come me? Why do I? I think this is another one of those challenges, because I am a teacher who's teaching people about healing. Healing not just their physical body, but healing everything in their life. So that to me, I just think this is just another gift. It's been handed to me. I'm going to try this, and I'm going to work on that, and I'm going to meditate on it, and the right person will show up, or the right, as long as you stay focused. And then ultimately you get to what I call the third level of enlightenment, which is where you can get out in front of things. You can actually see things coming at you. And rather than have to go through the suffering or even have to go through the struggle in the moment, you can just sort of bypass it.